Welcome to Josie and Ellie Crochet, and today's tutorial is on how we can make these little crochet Christmas wreaths. Now these can be perfect for decorating your Christmas tree with or hanging ornaments around your home. We have three different options. So the first one here is your first round for the other two as well. So that's where I'm going to start today's tutorial. We then have two different options for a second round moving around our hoop, and our third wreath option here. As you can see, I've also chosen three different types of bows that you can choose. So any type of ribbon material that you have at home. Here I've just used another simple cord that I've tied in a bow, and here I've just chained. I think I chained 30 for this one. With an aran cotton yarn, and then place that in a bow and attach to the hoop. So it's quite flexible with what you can use. I actually got this in the Aldi yarn sale a couple of months ago. This is some macrame yarn. However, I use bobini cotton cord a lot, and the 3mm cotton cord is what I used. I made these last year, I made loads of them, and I used bobini cotton cord, the 3mm size for that. So that's also ideal, but you could also use an aran cotton weight as well. So it's quite a flexible pattern with what you have. You will require some hoops. Oh, these are some wooden craft hoops which you can get from craft shops or on Amazon. They come in different sizes. Again, it's just a preference with what size you want. If you don't have any of these, or you can't get your hand on any, when I first started making these, I actually used the hoops from the curtain rail. They have a little loop at the top, and that was ideal to attach the string to. So talking about string, the other thing you will need is some string for a loop. If you don't have any, you can use the yarn that you're choosing to work with. So if you don't have any string, then you can use your cord or yarn that you're working with. I'm using two different sized hooks. Now you don't have to, but I'm starting off with a 6mm hook for the first round, and when I go on to the second round for the second and third wreath, I go down 0.5mm, so I've got a 5.5mm hook for the second round, but you can stay with your initial hook, that's no problem. You will need a darning needle to weave your ends in, and you will need scissors to cut your cord or yarn, and as I say, some form of material for your bow. So I'm going to pop this to the side and we can get going. Okay, so taking our hoop and our larger hook, so for me that's a 6mm, we're going to take your yarn of choice, and we're going to start by creating a slip knot. So to do that, we take an X shape around our finger, we take the hook under the first piece here, over the second, and pull that through, remove our finger and tighten up around. So you want to make sure that you've got an end long enough for weaving in the ends, and from there I'm going straight away with a double crochet. Now I use UK terminology. If you use US terminology, that's a single crochet. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the hook through the hoop and pull the yarn up around the hoop here. Then I'm going to take my yarn over the hook, and we've got two loops here, so I'm going to pull that yarn through the first loop and then through the second loop, and our cord is now secure onto the hoop. Now, to save me weaving in the ends at the end, I'm going to hold this onto the hoop and crochet over it. If that's something that you're not a fan of, you do not have to do that, and you can weave your ends in at the end. But I'm going to keep this end close to the hoop. So I'm doing the same thing again. I'm taking the hook through the hoop, pulling that yarn up and over. Then I'm taking my yarn over the hook. I have 2 loops on, so I pull through the first loop and through the second loop. And you can see that we now have 1 chain and 2 chain on our hoop. And we are going to do that all the way around until we fill the hoop. So we bring that yarn up, yarn over the hook, pull through the first loop, pull through the second loop. So hook in, pull the yarn up, and you want to make sure you're pulling it up enough that it will cover the hoop, because if we come here, it will look a bit odd. We want to try and make sure that we're bringing it up and over so then our stitches are all in a line. Take that yarn over and pull through 1 loop, pull through 2 loops. So hook in, pull that yarn up, yarn over, pull through 1 loop, pull through 2 loops. It can feel a little bit fiddly at first, but once we get going, you get into the hang of it. Now, if you're doing what I am doing here, you can see that I've weaved it in under there. Hopefully you can see that. You want to make sure that you pull it tight though, because otherwise you get a bit of a bump here. So I'm going to pull that, and then that just smooths that out nicely there. And then I can continue. So hook in, pull the yarn up, hook over, pull through 1 loop, pull through 2 loop. So it's a very simple pattern that works up really quickly. And I make these for teacher thank you gifts. I make these for friends and family. And the joy with this is that you can use so many different colours. There's so many different options with how you make them. I like to give them as a set of 3 because I don't know why. I don't know if that's something my mum taught me. But Christmas decorations always come in 3 for some reason. Right, so I feel like that end is secure enough. So I'm now going to leave that out, and I'm just going to work around the hoop now. So what I'm going to do is continue this all the way around until we get to here. So I'm going to meet you back here. Okay, so I've worked my way around the hoop and I've left a small gap here. So what I'm going to do with that gap, I'm going to get some string. Now, as I say, if you don't have any string, you can just use the same cord that you're using. Where are my scissors? There they are. I'm just going to cut this piece in half. And then I'm just going to tie this around the hoop in that gap there. Take that out. Oh, I'm making this a bit more fiddly than it needs to be. There we go. So I'm going to secure that in place there, put a knot at the top, hold that in place. There we go. Right, so then what I'm going to do is continue round, but what we want to make sure is that it is quite close. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push this around a little bit. It's up to you how gappy you want it to be. You might want to be able to see the wood through, but I like to not overdo it, but get it nice and close around there. and then I can just work my way over the string there to keep that in place. And I think I can fit one more in there. There we go. Right, so then what I'm going to do is cut my cord, and I'm going to pull that through, and I'm going to create an invisible join here so this flows really nicely round. I can cut the back of my end off because I know that that's securely in place. Right, so we want to get our yarn needle, thread that through, which is always the tricky bit. There we go. All right, so I'm working around this first stitch here, so I'm going to go through this next stitch here, up, and I'm going to go into the middle and through that second back loop here, pull that through and pull that nice and tight, and then I can work my way round here to make sure that oh, I've gone through. Oh, let's try that again because I've gone through a piece of the cord. It wouldn't let me go through. Let's try again. There we go. All right, there we go. Nice and secure. There we go. And we can work that round a few more times to make sure that's nice and secure. And then we can cut our end. There we go. Right, so maneuver that around a little bit. So there we go. So what I'm going to do is place the bow here, so it will just cover the little piece of string that we can see here. Now to do this, so whether you're using your ribbon or you're using another piece of cord or you're going to create a chain, the way I like to do it is to create 2 bunny ears, cross over, and then fold that through and tighten up, and then I basically just maneuver this around until it's looking like an appropriate size. That looks about the right kind of bunny ears. Keep that nice and tight. That one could be a bit longer. Oh. Yeah, and then I will cut the edges. There we go. And then we can get our glue gun. So bear with me a second, it doesn't reach all the way over. Let me grab it. There we go. Pop a blob of glue on the back there. Oh, mine's gone crazy. There we go. And then press that down to keep it in place. Right, so that is wreath number 1. So now we're going to move on to our second option with our Christmas wreath hoop. Okay, so we're on our second wreath decoration here. as you can see, I've already completed round 1, so exactly the same as we did with this wreath here, but I've left it open because what we're going to do now, and you can see that I've attached our string already because we can then kind of shuffle that in to cover it up. I'm going to take, you don't have to do this, but I'm choosing to take out the larger hook and work with a smaller hook. So I'm moving down to a 5.5. And then what I'm going to do in my first stitch, I'm going to take a slip stitch. So I'm going to go in, take my yarn over, and I'm going to pull through the stitch and then through the loop that was on our hook there. And then from there, I'm going to chain 1. And then I'm going to work into our next stitch here, another slip stitch. So pulling that yarn through and then through that loop on the hook, and then chain 1. And again into the next chain there, pull the loop through and then through the loop on the hook and chain 1. And we're repeating that all the way around. So we slip stitch into the next chain and chain 1, slip stitch, chain 1, slip stitch, chain 1. And you can see that pretty little pattern is starting to work up around the edge of our hoop. So it doesn't really matter how many times you take that double crochet around the hoop. We're not working in any particular numbers here, just in each stitch there we're taking a slip stitch, oh, couldn't say that then, slip stitch and a chain 1. So I'm going to keep working around and I'll meet you back at the top. So I'm going to take a slip stitch into my final stitch here. Oh, I've caught the string there. There we go. Then we can cut our cord there. And we can fasten off. And then we have the job of weaving in our ends again. So just as we did with the last wreath, we're going to work our way through, and I'm going to weave in at the back of the hoop there. So you can take an invisible join here, but because we've done a slip stitch chain 1 throughout, I think it works quite well just with a slip stitch. But if you prefer to do an invisible join, you can refer back to the first wreath that I go through how to do that with. So then we're just going to weave in our ends around the back here. And then once we've done that, we can cut our ends off. And then you can choose what type of bow you want to attach. So you might want to have your ribbon, you might just want to tie a different colour string or cord or yarn in a bow and glue that on, or you could chain 30 and attach that on. So now we are going to move on to our third and final wreath, which is this one here. So for this one, we are doing exactly the same as we have previously. So as we did with our first wreath, we're taking that first round of double crochets, and as we did with our second wreath, we're slip stitching together, but our pattern is slightly different. So once you've added your slip stitch in the top, you have your smaller hook size. So again, I'm at 5.5. Instead of chaining 1, you're going to chain 3. So 1, 2, 3, and then as we did in our second wreath, slip stitch into the next stitch. So exactly the same as wreath 2, but instead of chaining 1, we're chaining 3 and then going in for a slip stitch. So we're not missing any. 1, 2, 3, and slip stitch. 1, 2, 3, and slip stitch. Now I know you shouldn't have favorites, but this I think is my favorite one. I think it just works up really nicely and creates that really pretty kind of frill around the wreath. So we keep working our chain of 3 and our slip stitch all the way around. So I'm working into my final stitch now. So the last 3 chains and slip stitching into the last stitch. And as I did with wreath 2, I'm gonna cut that cord, fasten off. We can thread the yarn through the needle. Working our way into the back there. And look how pretty that is. I really do love that one. And then we can weave those ends in. Oh, I think I might have caught. Yes, can I work that out? Oh, there we go. Caught a bit of thread there. Let's go one more time. Oh, I did it again. Let's see if I can do what I did last time. There we go. We are, and oh, cut our end off. And there we go. So, I mean, you could very well leave it like this. You don't have to add a bow. I think it's equally pretty. But if you do want to add your bow, here are our 3 that we have now made. Our 3 wreaths that we've made. It's a lovely beginner friendly pattern that I think is really effective with the final product. So I really hope that you found this tutorial helpful, and hopefully you're now confident to make lots of these for your own tree, for families, friends, whoever it might be. I really, really hope that you enjoy making them like I do. I make them every year and just love them. If you have any questions, please do comment and ask. I'm always happy to help. And I really hope that you enjoy this. Happy crocheting!